Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell right now so you never miss an episode of Operation Truth. Send us an email, ask your questions, and very possibly we'll address your question on the air.
Operation Truth, the show they don't want you to see. Now, here's your host, Lou.
Hello, everyone. This is Lou Palumbo. This is Operation Truth, and with me, as always, is Tom Fuentes, my co-conspirator, although it's a rather interesting word to use with Tom's background. That's the last thing he is. In any case, I want to just get right into this discussion about where we're going in this country today. First, I want to go and remind you, as I always do, about this border issue, this migration issue, which if you follow any of my podcasts, be it this one, Operation Truth, or Between the Lines, you'll see a consistency in what's transpiring. And I guess the news is reporting that they had as many as 11,000 illegal migrants purge the border in one day. What's so interesting about this discussion today is that the loudest voices in regards to this immigration issue are coming from Democrats. The Eagles sector, I think it was, he's a Democrat, he's screaming at the White House. El Paso, I believe his mayor's declared a state of emergency. The governor of Massachusetts, these are all Democrats, by the way. You might be interested to know that Governor Hochul in the state of New York has called out the National Guard to help manage the migrants in New York City, which are just coming in droves every week. There doesn't seem to be any end in sight. I think that's probably driven by the fact that Governor Abbott from Texas is going to make sure that everyone experiences what he's experiencing. You know, my part of the solution to this problem is to send them to the Naval Observatory in Maryland, where the vice president resides, and to Washington, D.C., to the Great Lawn there. That's what I think they should do. But people, don't be fooled. This is going to not just resonate in a city like New York, which the mayor is stating it's going to destroy the city. It's going to destroy our country because we have more people that need than people are producing at this point, whether anybody's really keeping track of this. So it's a very, very not complicated problem, but dangerous problem. And it makes you wonder what's driving this. I mean, you know, I don't have time to hate people because of the color of their skin, their ethnicity, their religious denomination, you know, your culture, your lifestyle. I really don't care. I think you just, as long as we stay in our lane, as I say, be considerate, respectful of one another, everything should be fine. But what's driving this? I don't see many people other than people from third world nations being permitted into the country at this point. And it begs the question, what's the agenda? I guess, and this is just speculation, I'm not giving you anything that I necessarily want you to bite into, but perhaps the Democrats are attempting to build a new voting base and change a red state to a blue state, that being Texas. I think they may be surprised, though, because I think a lot of people that are coming from these oppressed countries understand exactly what freedom is about, and we're basically trying to take freedom away from us. It's an interesting discussion. And I encourage you guys, you know, it's you can contact us through operationtruthofficial@gmail.com. Your comments are critically important. That you become part of this voice is critically important. Tell you something else I'm finding rather interesting. People in the media, I don't even call them journalists because I'm not quite sure if they qualify for that distinction. But people in the media and even some elected officials are starting to connect the dots that we're paving a very dark road for our children. And that's the purpose of this podcast. You know, Tom and I are both at a crossroad in our life where, to be honest with you, we have pensions, Social Security, we have, you know, viable business entities. We can kind of ride off into the sunset and let everybody figure out what they're going to do. But those of you who listen to Tom Fuentes know he's quite plugged in. He has a tremendous amount of insight and knowledge as a result of his almost 30-year career, I believe, if I'm correct, with the FBI, leaving as an assistant director, having positions such as being in charge of their foreign operation, which is 90 countries and thousands of agents. Tom's pretty plugged in, also an historian. I didn't say hysterian, did I? Historian, just to correct it. You know, we've spoken about a lot of things, and one thing that's extremely pertinent that everyone should really look into is this Kennedy assassination and the loss of the innocence of this country, and this spontaneous discovery of deceit, deception, and a lack of credibility that resonates through this government, which was really put into motion at that time. There's a lot to be said about that and why we're living the way we're living today. We seem to have abandoned these words of honor, integrity, and trust. All we are is agenda driven, politics driven, power driven, money driven, that thing we value more than we value our children's safety. So as always, there's a lot to talk about. I'm trying to figure out when the light's going to go on in a lot of our major cities that are just crime ridden, homicides. What's so really tragic, another child was just shot in one of these shootings. I'm trying to remember the city, not that it's relative, because it could be any city. It could be Philly, Chicago, Detroit, New York, Washington, Baltimore. It could be any one of them. They're just happening on a regular basis. But we just seem to lack the courage to take this bull by the horns. And I do fault the political mechanism. I said repeatedly, the Republicans need to insinuate themselves into the minority community, begin to collaborate with the clergy and the local officials, elected officials, and start to convince them that the demographic that's going to protect them is a conservative demographic, one that believes in the enforcement of the law, because that's what's absent in all of these major cities of ours today. So I want to just bring in at this point Tom Fuentes, and Tom and I are going to talk to you a little bit about this Menendez allegations that are going on, bribery, corruption, extortion. This happens to be right in Tom's lane, by the way, because that's a lot of what the FBI does. I'm sure they were heavily instrumental in this investigation. This is an elected public official, U.S. Senator. Am I correct, Tom?
No, that's correct. That would be FBI would have primary jurisdiction for this type of corruption when they're doing their job, going after this type of corruption. We're not necessarily seeing that on all sides, and I'm a little surprised to be seeing that in this case it actually is a Democratic senator that's been indicted for this type of corruption. And we're talking corruption at a huge level, hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash, gold bars, a luxury vehicle, other goods, worth a lot of money for the benefit of some political figure or some business figures in New Jersey that Menendez is affiliated with, and on behalf of the country of Egypt benefiting from this.
That's interesting. Tom, can you just walk us through a little bit of the investigative mechanism? Because I always tell people something about the FBI. Once you hit that radar screen, it isn't an if they catch you, it's a when they catch you. So I am curious, I'm sure there were wiretaps and other mechanisms that were involved in determining or identifying the fact that this has occurred. So tell me, what do you think, Tom, exactly the FBI did that kind of pinpointed all of this exchange of goods and commodities? And I think cars are even involved in this. I guess everybody wants a car. Hunter wanted one. This guy wants one. I can't explain that fixation with automobiles. I don't have it. Tom, any insight on this?
Well, this is the second time within a decade that they've, indicted Menendez. He went to trial the first time a couple of years ago. Basically they had a hung jury and charges were dismissed, and he wasn't retried after the hung jury. But very similar type situation of he's taking money from others to provide a benefit for them, whether it's policies as a U.S. senator or other business opportunities for his illegal colleagues to do that. So I think in this case, he got away with it the first time apparently, and continued, to engage in certain activity that came up on the FBI's radar. Now again, he wasn't convicted. He's not convicted now. He's charged or indicted. So we can't exactly say, positively he's a crook and he did it and he needs to go to jail. Well, he has to be convicted first, and he has a right to, a fair trial, and innocent till proven guilty. So we'll learn more about what techniques and how this came about on the part of the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office that backed this investigation to the point of presenting the evidence that they obtained to a grand jury, and they were able to indict not only Menendez, the senator, but his wife as well for being involved in the scheme with him. So we'll see. Tom, we'll see what the evidence is. The evidence will come out, as time goes on here. Well, obviously, he's already said that he's innocent. So we're going to see another trial. And in the trial, you're going to find out normally, you're right. Investigations like this often take wiretap evidence that actually, where the person in his own recorded voice is providing the evidence to convict himself. And for the FBI to gain the authority to have wiretaps, to use electronic surveillance, that normally takes an informant on the inside who is giving information of how these conversations are taking place, what specific laws are being violated, and how they can obtain evidence, especially through a wiretap. Now, part of the investigation in cases like this will start where a source, confidential human source, will be wearing, a body recorder, meet with whether it's the senator or his associates, and record those conversations. Now, in that situation, it's a consensual recording, so that one of the two participants in the conversation is giving permission, is wearing a wire. And they get evidence of a wiretap. When you have electronic surveillance under that, it's under Title III of the Omnibus Crime Control Act of 1968, when you have that authority, nicknamed Title III by FBI agents, prosecutors, under that authority, neither participant in the conversation is aware of the recording. So the authority to record a conversation that way requires a judge to issue a court order for that wiretap. And the FBI would have to present the probable cause of how they know that conversation is taking place, how they know the individuals participating, what they're discussing, what law is being violated at the federal level that would qualify, whether it's bribery or extortion, other criminal acts that would qualify under the statute to enable the FBI to conduct a wiretap and gather the rest of the evidence.
Tom, you brushed on something that's very, very important for everyone to remember, and that's the fact that the senator is entitled to due process. And for whatever reason, we've developed a habit or propensity to, I guess, not embrace that concept. And I'll give you an example, and I'm sure you're well aware of it. In Ferguson with Michael Brown and the police officer that was involved, they predetermined his guilt just based on what they thought was an optic. It wasn't even an investigation. We didn't get into an investigation to determine that, but we predetermined guilt. It's critically important, everyone, no matter what you hear in the media, that you hold on to these concepts, especially this issue of due process. Whether or not he's guilty will be determined based on the prosecutorial arm of the government. But I am curious, Tom, what put this guy on the radar screen this time? In other words, you alluded to something that maybe there was someone who was involved in a transaction, maybe independent of this activity, and bumped into it. And at that point, brought it to the attention of the U.S. attorneys and the FBI. And we're speculating a little bit right now, Tom. But what do you think could have happened here?
I don't know. Could be an informant, could have gone to the FBI, or someone that's an associate of Menendez, and for one reason or another decided to go to the authorities and say, this activity is going on, this kind of bribery, or this is what's occurring. And then the FBI would initiate the investigation from there. And as more evidence is developed, then expand the investigation into greater depth to try to determine that they know what's happening and how they can gather the evidence to prove that it's happening, then present that evidence to a federal grand jury. So what the initial part of this was, I don't know, and that may come out later. But normally, these kind of cases typically start with somebody on the inside that feels that they have not been correctly handled or paid or whatever, or they paid for something that they didn't get. And that sometimes happens also, where individuals would bribe a public official and say, okay, now, the quid pro quo, this for that in Latin, meaning that we paid you, now we expect some favor in return, some favorable legislation that you're going to back, or a policy, or some other activity that you're going to do. Now that we've paid you, do this for us. And if they feel like, in some cases, they've been double crossed after paying the money, that can happen, where they can go into the FBI and say, look, we paid this guy a couple $100,000 and he didn't do what he said he was going to do. So sometimes that happens. I'm not saying that's in this case. We don't know yet.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break, everyone, and we're going to come back and we're going to brush up against this Clinton Foundation, which Tom has spoken to quite intelligently before, because we're starting to experience in the culture today is what we call selective enforcement. Just stay with us, guys. This is Operation Truth. I encourage you to become part of this discussion. It's Operation Truth official at gmail.com. We're doing this to take this country in a different direction. We have a master plan. This is the beginning of it by starting a conversation that is not contentious. We're not telling you who to vote for. We're just going to try to tell you as truthfully as we possibly can. We don't want to spoon feed you. We're going to suggest you fact check us. I'm also going to suggest you stop being spoon fed by these other media outlets, Fox, MSNBC, CNN, because they all have an agenda. We don't have an agenda. This is not being a Republican or being a Democrat. The things I say would be said regardless of who is politically attached to this. And Tom is the exact same way. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about selective enforcement. We've got a lot of interesting issues that are lingering right now. I do want to come back and talk about this classified document issue because I'm curious to know how that's progressing. Stay with us. We'll be right back, and I'll bring Tom with you.
The change from currency systems to fully digital cashless societies has intensified fear around the world. In mid-September, Wells Fargo and Truist banks planned major layoffs as an impending 2024 recession has been predicted by many economists. Many analysts are predicting silver will hit an all-time high in 2024. That's why you need to own silver as a hedge. Green energy demand will possibly turbocharge silver prices to 50, 100, even 300 an ounce, according to many experts around the world. Silver is a proven hedge against inflation. Since 1971, silver has returned over 11% when averaged yearly. Hard Asset Management is a trusted leader in precious metals and rare coins for nearly 40 years. We have the guaranteed lowest prices, fast and easy ordering, expedited shipping, with award-winning customer service available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. CST, Monday through Friday. So protect yourself from the chaos. Invest in stability with Hard Asset Management. Call now and get your free Hard Asset Management information kit on how easy it is for you to own silver. 844-426-4653. Free delivery and extra silver with every $10,000 bought. Use promo code 007.
As always, my colleague, Tom Fuentes, former FBI director, assistant director of the FBI, to be more precise. We were talking about this Menendez case, how it may have come about. Tom was just giving you some food for thought as to what triggers these investigations. Sometimes it's someone's disgruntled. That's simple. But what's also interesting is that looks like we're selectively enforcing the law. We've had these issues with Hunter Biden and taxes and improperly filling out what was referred to as a federal firearms form of 4473 is the number. I want you to, Tom, give me some insight on this Clinton Foundation, which I understand is rearing its head again. But what slipped through the cracks with the prosecution with the Clinton Foundation? How did they avoid the radar screen, so to speak?
Well, basically, Lou, the foundation was taking in millions, hundreds of millions of dollars altogether from all over the world. And it was set up to be a charity. And as a result, in the past, politicians that were enriching themselves, one of the usual ways was campaign contributions. So they would receive money, extensive amounts of money, whether paid to a PAC on their behalf or directly to the politician, who then would take certain positions or try to enact certain laws or whatever to benefit the contributors or the donors. Now, in the case of the foundations, one of the things that made this so brilliant, and I'll give Hillary credit for this, she did break the glass ceiling. She became the first woman to run a major international organized crime group, which I think the foundation was. They took in hundreds of millions of dollars, and they were going to use that to cure malaria and starvation and help poor people all over the world and do all these great things. And then as people looked at the foundation, and it never was really seriously audited, but people were looking at it going, you know, how much of that money that they're collecting is being used so that they can live in a first-class style, Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea, and just basically enrich themselves for their own benefit. And not a lot of the money was curing malaria or hunger or any of these other issues like they claimed it was. And so the foundation was under investigation. The FBI investigated that also, not just Hillary destroying emails and other activity, but the money that they were taking in that really wasn't going to charitable efforts like they said it was. And they didn't discriminate in who they took money from. Oligarchs, foreign governments, and in some cases also wanting to do good, allegedly, but also from other criminals and other people that had enriched themselves around the world. Nobody was really paying much attention to that. The idea was that people would pay into the foundation, hoping that Hillary would become president, and then they could benefit from her presidency, much like we see now with the current president benefiting from the millions of dollars, that he received in the last few years, and how much he's helped the countries that paid that money to him. But in the case of Hillary, it all backfired on them when she fails to get elected in 2016. When she loses to Trump, now suddenly she's not going to be the president. She's not going to be the Secretary of State like she was under Obama. She's not going to have any real power at that time. And so when Trump comes into office, by the time Trump leaves, they're not receiving the money. They've pretty much stopped operating the Clinton Global Initiative and the Clinton Foundation. And so as a result, there was really not much happening, for 6 years. Now, all of a sudden, the foundation rises up, the Global Initiative rises up. You have Bill Clinton meeting with the Pope. You have Hillary again starting to, renew her accusations that the Russians stole the 2016 election from her, and all of these other reasons why, she was a victim. And suddenly they're back in business, only this time they're back in business because they're going to do good in the Ukraine. Now, the last time when they were in business, you had an enormous earthquake in Haiti. They were going to do good in Haiti. And the people down there realized that it was an empty promise. They really didn't do much of anything on their behalf. And as a result of that, they're really not very popular and should not go back to Haiti anytime soon. But now they're able to start up again, hoping that everybody has forgotten the past, which is our normal way. Forget about what happened a few years ago. And now they're going to do good in the Ukraine. And ironically, some of the accusations that have made about the Clinton Foundation and children and what happened with children, suddenly one of their excuses are, we're going to help find all these children that are missing out of the Ukraine. We're going to help restore the Ukraine. We're going to help. And you have a number of people with money or wanting to get money that are now claiming that they're going to rebuild Ukraine. Almost everyone now is recognizing that the Ukraine has been pretty much demolished as a country as a result of the war with Russia. And so you have companies like BlackRock and others they're all coming out of the woodwork now, knowing that they're going to be able to get a piece of the action in Ukraine and make money by claiming that they're helping Ukraine. And I think the foundation, it'll be yet to be seen what exactly they do. But from my opinion, given their track record in the past, I think that this will be another ability to loot money on behalf of Ukraine.
I want to ask you a question, Tom, because you mentioned something that's highly pertinent. The fact that it was under investigation by the FBI. Why did this investigation not blossom like they normally do? Do you have any insight as to how they ended up not coming out with any facts regarding misappropriation of funding or embezzlement or bribes, et cetera, et cetera? What happened there?
I think that to me, politics was already starting to rear its ugly head with regard to the FBI and what they were investigating and how aggressively they were and what they were doing with the evidence. And I think that, Hillary has acted all this time as if she's completely above the law, and she has been. And a good example of that is the day she became Secretary of State under Obama, he appoints her Secretary of State. And the foundation is very active in making money from all over the world. And then the former president, Bill Clinton, goes out to give speeches with some of these foreign groups and foreign countries. He went to Russia a couple of times. And he's getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for speeches that before she became Secretary of State, he was making, 10% of that amount of money. And suddenly now, because he gets paid to do these speeches, and that's like personal income. That's not going to the foundation, but that's coming in because enriching Bill, therefore Hillary, gives them money and power to act on behalf of the donors that are helping them out. So anyway, Hillary, when she becomes Secretary of State, there's a federal law. When you work for the federal government and you do federal government business, you have to do it on government computers, government mobile phones, government landline phones.
Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, continue, Tom. I'm uh-ohing because suddenly we opened up a can of worms here about what you're supposed to be doing. Continue. I apologize.
Rare coin prices have exploded in the last 3 years. Hard Asset Management, one of the world's largest precious metals and rare coin dealer firms, makes recommendations on what to buy for collectors who know what they're looking for. We maintain one of the world's largest rare coin inventories for individuals seeking to diversify precious metals and rare coins. We can make strong recommendations in areas that we feel have the strongest potential for long-term growth. Call today, 844-426-4653 to receive our free Rare Coin newsletter, or register online at bmcham.com. Free delivery and extra silver with every $10,000 bought. Use promo code 007.
Okay, well, let me peel off the rest of it and let the worms out. You have Hillary Clinton, the first day she's at the Secretary of State's offices in Washington, the head of technology, IT, for the State Department says, okay, here's your computer, here's your phone, here's your equipment. And these are all tied into the government system. So you can never delete an email. If you've got, the phone that she wanted to smash, all of those kind of things, if it's a government issued device, the forms, the files, everything is in that system, in the government grid, and you can't take it out, even if you want to. So she knows that. She wants to intermingle her business with the foundation and U.S. government business as Secretary of State. So she tells the IT guy, I want my personal computer in my house, under my control, and I'm going to use my own devices to do that. And of course, he quickly tells her, you can't do that. That's illegal. It's against federal law, the Federal Records Act. Don't do it. Well, she does it anyway. And she proves herself right because she gets away with it. And so that's the whole thing. So later, when they determine in the investigation, they determine from the receivers of her emails from other people that produced their email that shows it was being sent from her personal computer system in her home. So the government then, the FBI, and they issue subpoenas. They want her phone records, her files, all of the stuff that's on these systems and on her personal. At that time, everybody was still using BlackBerries before the real popularity of the iPhone came out, or the other devices like Samsung devices, Android devices. But anyway, she's operating these devices on her own illegally, and Congress issues subpoenas for 33,000 emails, which she proceeds to destroy the devices and never provide the emails to the government like she was subpoenaed to do. So she obstructs justice on top of everything else. And because those are her personal devices, she smashes them with hammers and bleach bit. We hear all the exotic ways that they use to destroy the files that were on those specific machines. And that's how she got away with it. And then later, in 2005, you have, in 15, you have Comey give the speech where he says no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute her. And he cites all the different ways that what she did was wrong, illegal, improper, you name it. But nobody would prosecute this case. No reasonable prosecutor would take the case. And so basically, he had no business issuing that statement. And by the way, let me back up. I skipped a step. Loretta Lynch is the Attorney General at that time. The case against Hillary is under full-bore investigation by the FBI. And lo and behold, about a week or two before Comey gives that speech, Bill Clinton happens to show up on the tarmac at the airport in Phoenix, where Loretta Lynch is sitting on her plane waiting to take off or waiting for clearance, whatever. And Bill Clinton goes right past the Secret Service agents, climbs on that plane, and spends a half hour with Loretta Lynch. Now, later, they claim, oh, we only talked about golf or our families, our kids, you name it. Nothing about the pending case against Hillary that's about to be completed by the FBI. Oh, we didn't talk about that at all. In any event, Loretta Lynch recuses herself from making the prosecutive decision in the Hillary case. Now, what should happen is that when she recuses herself, the deputy attorney general at the Department of Justice then would have the responsibility for the decision making now that she's not making the decision. It should not go to James Comey at the FBI. Comey took it upon himself to basically say, we're not prosecuting and nobody would prosecute this case. Now, by doing that, he absolutely guaranteed that she would not be prosecuted, because now a so-called reasonable prosecutor with all this evidence against her, if that prosecutor tried to make the case and bring the charges against her, during the trial, her first witness would be the defense calls James Comey. Did you not say that she shouldn't be prosecuted? Yes, I did. Case closed. And throw the case out. So she basically was more or less given immunity by James Comey in that speech. Now, there was speculation. Comey wanted to make sure he remained head of the FBI. If Clinton won the investigation, wanted to stay in her good graces. We don't know. But the net effect was that any prosecution with regard to the subpoenas for those files was pretty much sabotaged on purpose by James Comey.
This is a pretty good example of selective enforcement. What's so curious, Tom, is that they've decided to uncharacteristically go after this Senator Menendez. Guys, we're going to wrap for today. We're going to come back the next show. We're going to start talking a little bit about this election cycle and the merits of some of the candidates. And one of them certainly is going to be Donald Trump. The other thing I'm going to briefly talk about is this lies in America that we're experiencing, whether we talk about borders, gun control, the cost of living, the energy sector, transitioning to electricity. There's a lot to talk about here, guys. This has been Operation Truth. This has been Tom Fuentes, not speaking for Tom, but it has been Tom Fuentes. We'd like you to become part of this conversation. Operation Truth Official at gmail.com will allow you to send us emails, comments, critiques. And I do know that we're trying to broaden the platform or the basis of the show to get more participation from the audience, which I happen to like, and the thing, Tom, and I want you to remember is we would be saying the same thing if they're Democrats, Republicans. That's not what's driving this. It's about the truth. But what it's really about is trying to get us back on some form of a level playing field so our children have a future, because right now we're not doing too well in that area. Guys, thank you for joining us today, and we'll be back. We encourage you to hit the subscribe button right now so you can listen to more podcasts of Operation Truth.